Talk number 10, Melissa Mosey.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mosey.
Glad everyone loved me.
Okay. So I spent a lot of time thinking about what I was going to talk about today. I wasn't like a D1 athlete or didn't climb any mountains or have any like, huge success stories to inspire you guys with. And I almost started getting a little down on myself, thinking like, well, I don't have anything to talk about. I don't have anything cool that's happened. I don't have anything. But as soon as I started having those like negative thoughts, thankfully you guys have drilled into my brain almost every day religiously the thought of the positive mindset, and so I immediately changed my direction of thinking and started thinking about all the things that I have in my life that I have to be thankful for and that are so great. I have a job that I love working with all of you guys. I have a great relationship. I have a family that couldn't be better. I couldn't ask anything more of. And a few years ago, I would never have dreamed that my life would be coming together this well and I'd be this happy on a daily basis. The more that I thought about like all the things that I have in my life to be happy for or happy about, the more I started realizing that everything really does happen for a reason, and that's kind of what I'm going to talk about today. So I'm sure everyone's heard the saying, everything happens for a reason. I'm sure everybody's probably said it at one point or another. But has anyone actually ever like sat down and mapped out specific events that have happened in your life that have caused other events to happen and got you to where you are today?
Yes.
So let's
Yes.
answer that one
Okay.
because we talked about it yesterday.
So those events could be good or bad, but nonetheless, in one way or another, they changed your life and affected the course of the direction that you were going on and ultimately led you guys to be here today. So one good example is I only had the opportunity to work here with you guys because I happened to go out cold calling one afternoon at my previous job. I was driving down 40 heading towards the valley to go to some businesses that I had planned out to stop into, and for some reason I just decided to get off at the Clarkson exit and went into like 3 or 4 businesses around here between here and Clarkson and got turned down at all of them. And the last one was across the hall, walked out into the hallway, and I was frustrated and annoyed and was just ready to give up cold calling for the day and wanted to go home and not do it anymore. And for some reason, I saw this office and decided to go in and give it one more shot and not give up. And I happened to walk in, and Bill happened to be in the office that day and trying to sell him some office supplies, and the rest is pretty much history. And now I'm here working with you guys. But if I never worked at Staples, I most likely wouldn't have walked in here that day or any other day and wouldn't be working here with you guys today. To even take it a step further than that, I never would have started working at Staples if any of my career choices in college or high school or growing up or anything would have been differently. My first career goal or idea was to be a marine biologist. That didn't work out. My second plan was to be a physical therapist. Also didn't work out. Third plan was to own the Cardinals. Obviously, didn't work out either. It was kind of all over the place, I guess. But each time I decided on a new career or new path, the course of my life was altered in one way or another. And during each of those career changes, or whatever it's called in college when you change your degree, I felt like a failure or felt like I was doing everything wrong and I shouldn't be changing this many times, and something was wrong. But now being able to look back, I'm glad I was too scared to move to Florida, to move away from my friends and family, to go to that college for marine biology, and I'm glad physical therapy classes as a freshman seemed very hard. You keep laughing, it's distracting me. And 7 years of school seemed outrageous at the time, and I'm most glad that sports jobs don't pay very much money, and that didn't work out either. Because if any of those career changes would have worked out, I wouldn't have started working at Staples. I wouldn't have gone out cold calling that day. I wouldn't have walked in here, had a good conversation with Bill, and I wouldn't be talking in front of you guys today. Another example that I was just thinking about how grateful I am for is just my family. My parents specifically. My mom and dad got divorced when I was about 8, and as of about a year ago now, they got remarried back to each other. Typical love story now, but nowadays they act like they're two kids in love and as happy as they could be, and more in love than I've ever seen them in my whole life. But it was definitely not an easy road to get here. There was a lot of stuff that went on, and they both remarried. Neither of those marriages worked out, but my dad was married to a woman for about 13 years who had a daughter from her previous marriage. And so I basically grew up with this girl, Jessica is her name, and even though she wasn't technically my real stepsister, I guess, but I still considered her a sister, and still to this day consider her a sister and see her all the time. And now she has 5 unbelievable kids, all who call me their aunt, and one I get the opportunity to call my godson. So if my parents would have stayed together like I had wanted when I was 8 or 5 or 13 or however many years, then my dad wouldn't have remarried someone else, and I wouldn't have a 3rd sister and 5 more nieces and nephews. None of that would have happened if I would have got my 8-year-old wish of my parents staying together and not getting divorced. But yes, I mean, there was a lot of hard times during those years through the divorces and custody and everything, but ultimately all those hard times is what brought my parents back together and ultimately made them more in love today than they've ever been in their whole life. And because of that, I wouldn't have the additional family members that I do otherwise. So if you look back in time at any series of events that have happened in your life, you can kind of see how everything fits together perfectly. Sometimes those things that seem painful or difficult or unfair in the moment, it's overcoming those obstacles that got all of us here today. Everything that happens in our lives, whether it's good or bad or positive, negative, it all seems to happen for a reason. So I would just like to challenge all of you guys to think back to any difficult time, or doesn't even have to be a bad time, it could be a good time in your life, but what decisions did you make, or what changes did you make that was because of that hard time or good time, whatever it may be, and kind of think of how all those choices and changes led you down the path to get you guys all here today. And that's it.
That's perfect.